Welcome to the third episode of the Motorvait Supplier Showcase. I'm Neil Smith, CEO of Motorvait Automotive Consultancy, and in this series, I'm sitting down with the innovators behind the UK's most exciting automotive businesses, whether they're game-changing startups, industry disruptors, or established legends. We'll be diving into the latest digital and physical products currently shaking up the UK vehicle retail space. If it's making waves, we'll be covering it. My guest this week is Joel Combs, CEO and founder of Lawgistics, a business which has been providing legal solutions to the automotive industry for 2 decades. Joel, thanks for being my guest on today's podcast. How are you?
Good morning, Neil. Thanks for inviting me. I'm well this morning. Looking forward to this interview.
Excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, Joel. So look, Joel, for me, you sit firmly in the established legends category. I've known you for a number of years now, and we both share a passion for motorhoming and camper vanning. That's even if that's a word. But anyway, we do. To enable our viewers to get to know you a little better, a regular feature of this podcast series is the guest icebreaker. So please tell us 3 interesting facts about yourself, 2 of which are true and 1 that isn't. We'll then let the viewers ponder this during the podcast, and I'll ask you to reveal which are true and which is false at the end.
Okay. So I once got investigated by the trading standards for misdescribing a punt.
Okay.
I can explain. So my first job was selling boats, punts, dinghies and canoes. And we attended the London Boat Show regularly, and we were short of space. So we had to build a punt that was about 18 foot. Now, for it to be stable, they should be 22 foot or longer. So I had it on the stand, and I had some customer come out, "Oh, that's really cute. That'll look great at the back of the lodge." I said, "That one's not for sale. It'll be unstable." But they convinced me to sell it to them. And 2 months later, I had a complaint that it was unstable, and trading standards got involved. And yes, I was investigated for misdescribing.
Okay. There was a lot of detail there, so I'm thinking maybe that one's true, but I'm not going to second guess. Next one.
I'm playing the game, Neil. There's going to be detail on everything. So I used to play in a band with the guitarist from The Prodigy before he was famous. So this goes back to my school days. I was headhunted because I was a keyboardist, and I played in a band, and we got regular gigs around the local area. We got a bit of a crowd. We got a following of about 150 people. So we'd have busloads, and we started going down to London. And the guitarist that played with us later got headhunted by The Prodigy and joined them.
Brilliant. Love The Prodigy. Similar age we must be, mate. And your third and final fact.
So I'm a black belt in kickboxing, which was inspired by a nightclub that I used to run, where there was an incident where my head bouncer got into a tackle with a couple of the guests that were fighting, and I saw him put them to the floor quite confidently, but very brutal, very quickly before they knew what happened. And I was impressed and thought, this is a skill somebody should have. Never had to use it, but I am a black belt kickboxer.
Brilliant. Well, look, thanks for that, Joel. Who'd have known, eh? I'm intrigued to find out more later. So let's learn a little bit more about Joel Combs. So tell me about you, your background, and how you ended up where you are today.
Okay, so this is going to not help the last 3 questions because I'm going to embed them in what I'm going to tell you. So I started my first job. Well, first of all, I thought I was going to be a pop star because I was at school. I was headhunted. I joined a band. I was a keyboardist, and we started gigging. And I really thought this was going to be my career. We did 3 years. We were down in London, and that didn't work out. Things went wrong. So I thought, what should I do? And I became a salesperson because that was the highest paying job. And I started selling boats. So in the boat job, that was the only job I've ever worked for somebody, because at the end of that, they owned an old cinema, and I turned the old cinema into a nightclub and started doing club nights. That, unfortunately, 2-3 years down the line, somebody stepped up. We were earning good money, and they said, "Oh, by the way, I own half the building." This was the sister of the person who owned the building. So they wanted half the business overnight. So what I did was left the business literally overnight. And I took my wedge and I went off to India, and I stayed there for 7 months. People say to find myself. I was actually having a great time. When I came back, I hadn't totally run out of money, but when I came back, my father, that was running a company called Lawgistics, said to me, "Why don't you come and work for me?" Now, I'd had experiences in my life where the people that I had worked with, I couldn't trust. And I thought about it and I thought, if you can't trust anyone, you can trust your dad. Or that was fortunate for me that we could. So I said, yes, I'll come and work for you. So I went to work for my dad at Law Data in 1998, that would have been, as a salesperson. And it was horrible because the firm was established. And I was coming in as like a junior, and he was obviously the MD of this company. He'd run it for 35 years. It had a big name in the industry. And he said to me, "But you're going to sell a lot of warranties. I don't know whether you know the product, run your own warranties. We sell stationery for dealers to run warranties." And I looked at the product and I thought, it's just like selling tickets. It's £5 a shot, £5 to come in. Let's just sell them. So I embraced it and thought, let's have a go. Unfortunately, he fell out with his partner and he offered to buy his partner out at Law Data that he refused to do. So he set up Lawgistics, and myself and
Right.
his best friend Dennis Chapman moved across, and that's how Lawgistics was born.
Brilliant. Okay. So, look, as the founder of Logistics, along with the partners that you've just spoken about, just tell us a little bit more about the history from that point and the sort of current mission statement for the business.
Okay, so we started with no money because we'd left the other business. They hadn't been paid out. We had no clients, and, and we had no respect. If you look at where we are now, nobody knew us, so there was nothing to work on apart from the two characters. Dennis Chapman and my father were renowned in the trade for being former trading standards officers, and my father a solicitor, so they were renowned for their legals. But Raw Data had hit a limit where it only had 350 clients and wasn't getting any bigger than that. So it wasn't huge in the trade. So we started with absolutely nothing. And that for me was a good base to say, well, how are we going to attract people? I think my goal was to see my dad lose everything, was to make sure I could get back what he'd lost and then build on top of that. So that was really, I wasn't looking to change things in the motor trade. I was looking to get things back for my father.
Yeah.
So we entered, like I say, with no money and had to think outside the box. And I think that was 2001. I remember coming into their office, my father took a loan. I think we borrowed around about £300,000 to set the company up. So that's what we were up against. I remember my computer sitting on the desk and unpacking it and thinking, how does this thing work then? Welcome to the computer age. And we set that up and started selling. I remember just going round to dealers, knocking on the door. Dealers will remember me. I still get people say, I remember when you popped round. I thought I was going to be a pop star, so I still looked like a pop star as I walked around and didn't look right with the long hair and thinking, this is rock. But eventually signed up around about 350 clients in the first year. So we'd got some just from door knocking with my dad and getting that business back. But we couldn't get it much more than that. And it was just a reasonable business. And we started to employ some people. It wasn't until 2005 that I started to get some traction. So my dad had said, you're going to sell these warranties. And I was still focused on this warranty product. That was what was going to make us the money. And I think we had the FSA. Do you remember when the
Yeah.
FCA was the
Yeah.
FSA? They came out in 2007, and that was like the golden goose for me because all the insurance companies had to register all their clients buying their insurance warranties on the FSA register, didn't they? I remember
Yeah.
employing a salesperson to phone through there and offer our product to all those people. And we signed up, I think, around about 400 warranty clients in 1 year on the product. So
Right.
2007 was great, and that suddenly gave us the money. I was selling 100,000 warranty books a year
Yeah.
around the motor trade. Or when I say books, it was just simply the stationery to run your own warranties. And by 2015, we'd won an award for having the best warranty product in the motor trade. So that
Right.
a big thing and start to get traction. I think it was 2010 where I did a lot of work on we needed to rebrand because everybody was calling us Lawgistics, the warranty company.
Right. Yeah.
Law firm. For goodness
Yeah.
sake, we're a law firm. Uh, so we introduced our emails. And that's our blog that we still run, which is the legal updates, which is something that we do free, and built that up. I think we started writing in 2008, but it was about 2015 where we really saw the traction we were getting there.
Brilliant. And that's that. What's the distribution on that email now, Joel?
Um, I think it's a clean list of around about 16,000 readers now.
Yeah.
In its heyday, we'd got it up to 25,000, but probably used what would have been regarded as some unethical practices nowadays with GDPR to get it to that. We did a lot of cleanup. So in 2008, email marketing was kind of in its infancy, and we were collecting data. I remember going to big buying groups and saying to them, I can offer you free legal updates, and they were just giving me their email lists,
Okay.
and I was just load them into the system, and I think we call it spamming.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're probably right.
And with that, just seeing the ones that reacted and phoning them up and dealing with that, it was about 2010 that we started looking at bounce rates in emails and getting a bit more serious. And I could see that we were doing a lot more damage to the list than good to the list.
Yeah.
And that's when we chose to stop spamming or stop advertising and just give wholesome legal updates. And that kind of was the turning point for Lawgistics, where we probably was regarded with a bit more integrity rather than being
Yeah.
the gobby marketeers just saying this is what we sell, this is what we sell. We actually start to get inside and saying these are the sort of cases that we're dealing with. This is how we're helping the motor trade. But so yeah, about 16,000, I would
Okay.
say now, with about 35-40% open rate on that reading list as well, which is quite high on trades. And we send that out now every 2 weeks. But the power of that, you know, was 2015. I remember setting it up and thinking, oh, are we doing the right thing? Is anybody listening? I could see the open rates, but we weren't really getting much of a reaction. But then we had the Consumer Rights Act come in 2015, didn't we? And we'd
Yeah.
been writing about it since 2014. So I hadn't seen this in the background, but the SEO of our website and the content was going up. And then the law changed. Sale of Goods Act got pushed to one side for the Consumer Rights Act. So we're going to deal with consumers. And people started searching, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
How does the law affect us? Not just people, not just the motor trade. We had the national papers come to us because they found our content and said, oh, these people have been chatting about this and what we're going to do. And I remember publishing a article about PDIs, pre-delivery inspections, saying, look, you need to create the evidence before you sell a car that you have prepped it and this was the condition it was in. You think it's pretty basic stuff now and everybody does it now. But at that time, everyone's like, oh, yeah. And we sold these pads on Amazon. And I just put a link in the article to Amazon. I wasn't trying to sell the product. In fact, what happened next was I wished I hadn't put the link in there. One email, we sold £10,000 worth of pads.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm like, no way. I've got a picture of our corridors just full of post bags with the pads in. I thought that was amazing. People are reading what we're publishing.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm going to send that again. Just see what
Well,
happens.
well, look back, as you say, I think that was clearly, that was clearly early days of that sort of digital communication channel, and clearly even today, if you're getting that 30 to 40% open rate, then there's valuable insight, and dealers across the piece are seeing that as valuable insight, and that is, again, I'm assuming that's delivering more and more clients to Lawgistics, and they're taking advantage of your current offering. So it's probably a good point to just discuss, what your services are providing to dealers now and how it's helping address some of the challenges in the industry and how it's delivering value to those dealers across the UK.
I think logistics was always a solution to a problem, and I think that's our product. If we think back to what inspired us to do what we do, and I don't want to give our perceived competitor any light when we're talking about me, but we've already mentioned Lawdata,
Yeah.
and we came from Lawdata, and that was my father's idea. And he used to be an ex-trading standards officer, and he was fed up of going around the trade and prosecuting car dealers for doing something they were just naive about. And that's where he thought, well, actually, could we take a proactive approach and provide them with the tools they required or the knowledge they required to do the job properly? And I don't think people do the job incorrectly on purpose. They just
Yeah.
don't have the knowledge and there's not the whereabouts. So we are a solution, and our main product is obviously our legal advice line, telephone helpline, and then the casework service. If things go the wrong way, then we can put pen to paper and start writing letters or giving you advice on how to write to people. But then also we have the litigation service as well, where we have the Kick. So it's another company. It's a community interest company that we've set up 2 years ago now, where we can get involved in litigation. Interestingly, though, um, someone gave me the stats, 14% of the cases we deal with now go to litigation. Before we set that up, we were 8% were going to litigation, but I think we're becoming renowned. It's only been going for 2 years. And now people are actually coming to us to litigate for them in the first instance. But and we're very careful about that, because we don't want to get involved at that level. We want to get involved right from the start and say, this is how we do the job correctly, and provide you with those tools. And I think the whole idea of the legal helpline and even the legal updates is to arm people with that information. I think when you look at solicitors, they pick up the phone to a solicitor way too late. And that's because there's a cost involved,
Yeah.
high cost. They just don't want to ask. They try and deal with it themselves, and then the problem swells, and you're going to need a solicitor to undo it. But with us, we want to think, or we want a client to think, we're just at the end of the phone, like an employee. They can pick up the phone, run an idea past us, and we can come up with a plan forward to the problem before it blows up and gets out of hand. So
Yeah, and I think, look, that's massively valuable. And even at the end of our days at Imperial, we were a 250 million turnover company. We had access to solicitors, but clearly, we weren't being hit with massive amount of complaints. But with the 2,000 vehicles being sold a month, we were getting complaints. Clearly, be MQ complaints or process delivery complaints, that sort of thing. And even with us, we used Lawdata back in the day. So Lawdata were able to cover off a hell of a lot of those early complaint issues. And everybody knows, and we experienced it, that the longer you take to respond to complaints or go back with a robust defence or go back and just acknowledge that the complaints come in from a consumer, the worse that gets. It only gets worse at that point. And if the consumer feels they're being ignored or they're not being given the right information, or the dealer is trying to obviate their legal responsibility, it never gets better. It always gets worse. So the service that you provide is, and especially for those smaller independents, is something that is going to help those dealers definitely.
I did. I mean, it's funny you say that, the smaller independents. And my days were at Lawdata, and our focus was on the smaller independents because, they're very easy to communicate with. You
Yeah,
get to see the right person immediately, and they know about the problems they're occurring. But where we differ now from our competitors we are in with the large franchise and the groups now, and they
yeah,
came to us. And I think that's because of the intellectual knowledge that we've had. And again, it's a bit like my legal updates. I didn't understand that till it happened, but people are asking questions, and I'm thinking we have the answers to these questions because of the churn we've got. We've given our perceived competitors, and I absolutely love the new owner, and he's not that new owner of Lawdata now, but one of my colleagues at Lawdata that I worked with for sometimes bought Lawdata off of my dad's old boy. So I'm just putting it out there that there's no grief between the two of
yeah,
us,
yeah.
but we are two different beasts. So we do talk regularly, and he's dealing with same sort of issues we're dealing with. But why has Lawgistics grown bigger than any other person providing legal advice to the motor trade? And it's similar to that event in 2015, where we suddenly saw that our communication with the trade was much better than any of our competitors. We've seen that happen again when we had GDPR, and we were invited for giving feedback to the federations on our point of view. And then through the pandemic, it was hugely obvious that we had more knowledge than anybody else in the trade on these matters. Employment law, again, people didn't realize that we get involved in that. But when furlough came out and our advice on there, we suddenly had franchises saying, can you help us? We've got
Yeah.
a situation here to deal with. So those events that have happened in the motor trade, I look at it and it's our intellectual capital, the knowledge. You think about the churn we get at Lawgistics, we take between 2 to 3,000 calls a month on the phone.
Yeah.
They're coming backwards and forwards on the problems. And we raise between 3 to 400 cases a month. So that's a case that we're dealing with. And those cases, we were saying 14% of them turn up in court. So last year we dealt with 430 cases in court. There's no other firm in the UK dealing with that amount of problems in the motor trade. And that's kind of where we get
No,
intellectual capital from.
impressive. So look, what exciting projects, partnerships, or innovations can we expect or look forward to now and into the future from Lawgistics?
Okay. I think building on that recognition of the intellectual capital we've got, we, over the last 2 years, have now gone paperless. So we're putting all the cases into a knowledge database. We've just invested a large amount of money in giving all of our lawyers, which we've got 17 legal advisors on the books now, access to AI that gives them access to, I don't know, practical law. All solicitors subscribe to their own Google account where all the law is. But we've also opening up access to what the cases we've dealt with as well. So we're gonna be able to dispense more free advice quicker about motor trade issues. So there will be introduction of AI within our services because we see a lot of that happening within the trades. And also within our HR manager. I don't want to harp on about HR manager too much because I see that as a product for the future. It's something that we've been beta testing in the motor trade, but we had a conversation earlier. We have released it to every industry, but we are fine tuning it with feedback from every industry as we bring that. My clients might say, well, that's just going to dilute the service that you provide us. And I don't think that's the case at all. It's actually going to help us invest more in what we are providing the motor trade. So we are building, and that's happening this year, a health and safety portal as good as our HR software. So it's based on our HR software. It's using the same science, which will reduce the price that people have to pay HR consultants, as we have done with HR consultants. So you will be able to do it in-house. And I'm a strong advocate of dealers and groups doing their own health and safety. They shouldn't be outsourcing it. It's something they should own. It's something they should understand. So the product helps them do that. And then there's also our kick. We're 2 years into the kick, really hard to set up. We know that people weren't happy, as in other suppliers weren't happy with us setting it up because they saw it as competition. Well, it's a gift to the motor trade as far as I'm concerned. It's something that needed to happen. As that, I mean, it's still in a deficit, but it will never make a profit. But as we get more popular or more people know about it, then we would like to do a lot more with research. We work in the background with the SMTA, the FER, the IAAF, and some buying group where they're lobbying, but we're not lobbying vocally, but we're in the back end doing the research. Well, we would like to throw the money that the kick can make at researchers to support those people as well. So I think, as we move on and as we develop our software, it might look that we're getting bigger and we might dilute in the motor trade, but this is the vein. This is what my dad worked in. I absolutely love the motor trade. I think they will benefit directly with what we do here in the future.
Yeah, all sounds really exciting. So look, we're coming towards the end of the time. So in conclusion, really, for dealers of all sizes, franchise dealerships, car supermarkets, used car dealerships, independent service and repair garages, parts manufacturers, suppliers, Lawgistics have a membership package that can help protect any of these businesses by demonstrating good practice and cutting unnecessary overheads. And with the tiered memberships, there's a package that's just right for any of these businesses. I think listening to you talk about those sort of future initiatives and the recent rollout of HR Manager, You're allowing businesses to take control of those employee records, absences, latenesses, and holidays, as well as ensuring that employee contracts can be created in minutes, and more importantly, probably always complying with the latest regulations. So all of that, for me, and what you were talking about there, is just another set of benefits as to why dealers should really be considering using Lawgistics for their legal support. So look, Joel, I've really enjoyed our chat today, and thank you for taking the time to take us through the services that Lawgistics is able to provide. But before I let you go, we need to clear up the icebreaker question for our viewers. So, which of the three interesting facts was in fact false?
Okay, so it was the guitarist from The Prodigy.
Oh, that's so, Joel, that's so disappointing. I was hoping that was going to be one of the true ones, but carry on.
Well, I do know him.
Oh,
And he played in a group which we used to go round with, but he didn't play in our group. So
brilliant. Love it. Love it.
I've got a couple of Prodigy stories. I'll tell you them offline.
We'll do. Can we use that as a bloopers or an outtake?
Yeah.
Okay. Joel, thanks again for your time today. For more information about Lawgistics, visit the website www.lawgistics.co.uk or message Joel directly on LinkedIn. Just remains for me to thank you for watching, and a quick reminder that here at Motorvait we offer 1 hour remote one-to-one dealer discovery sessions for free. To learn more about these sessions and why you should book one, visit our website www.motorvait.co.uk. Goodbye for now.